Namaste. Who's going to give it a shot? Jean, please.
Ramachalokam Dipati Sahampati Katanchaliana Viradhammo Sandita Sata Harayaja Kajatika Dese Tudanam Amikam Imantajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Please discuss equanimity concerning aging and illness. One of the English poets, Blake or someone, he had this really horrible line: consciousness chained to a dying animal. Brutal, isn't it? Brutal thought. Well, aging, the best thing is to have lots of friends, isn't it? And whoever's taking care of you, be nice to them. Give them gifts, pay them extra, because they're going to be the most important people of your life. And nothing will give you less equanimity than being miserable. So be a good patient. We're already in the departure lounge when we're all in bed there. But with my mom and the whole aging process, I think most of us are quite stoic. Most of us are pretty, we're reasonable people, and we don't like to complain, and we like to just kind of do the best we can. So there was a kind of stoicism in a good way that I find really admirable in the elderly, really very admirable. So with my mom, if we're talking about elderly, she died at 97. The thing was really the mental states, right? And it wasn't so much a question of equanimity in terms of physical disability. She had osteoarthritis, and she had lost about 4 inches of height. She was hunched over, macular degeneration. She was legally blind, but her mind was delightful. Her mind was in good space. But I saw how quickly her mind could decline, very quickly, psychologically, if she didn't have lots of TLC. And it was a very, very interesting, very loving time with my mom, but also just contemplating how vulnerable an elderly person is to the ravages of anxiety or loneliness. And so with my mom, I was with her all the time for 9 years, and I constantly made efforts to engage her mind and tried to figure out what she liked And so she liked clothing. Okay, clothing? You got the wrong guy. Okay. Now I don't have money. My brother had the money. So I ordered catalogs from women's clothing manufacturers, and we would go shopping at the kitchen table. And she couldn't really read anything. I say, "Hey, this looks good." She, "Huh?" And then we'd order it, and she'd be all excited, and then it'd be the wrong size or the wrong color. But that didn't really matter because her mind was stimulated and interested. She loved gardening. She hadn't had a garden for a long, long, long time. And she had a balcony that didn't have water. She hadn't grown anything there. So I figured out how to get water on the balcony. And one year I had 60 potted plants. I was very proud of that. And I'm not a gardener, but it was great. And I could only get her. I had to build a ramp to get her over the ledge, and I'd seat her out there maybe only like half an hour a day. But that half hour of color and texture and smell kept her going for days. So there is a place for sense experience, which is actually very wholesome and very helpful. I just love, obviously. So as we age, kalyanamitta, friendships are so important. Whether they say it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to get old, doesn't it? If you're getting seriously old. As for the illness and the infirmities of old age, you adjust, don't you? Yeah, like my throat doesn't work. Well, I'm very lucky. I'm like super healthy. I'm ridiculous. I'm kind of waiting for the lightning to strike, right? When is it coming? So I'm really fortunate. But say one of our monks has a lot of illness. He has so much illness. So how do you do it? How do you actually manage your body? And he has a kind of underlying radiance to his mind. Because he has a lot of bhakti in his subconscious, he has a lot of faith and a lot of devotion, and religious life is a very loving experience for him. So though his body is it's really seriously ill in all manner of ways, he'll have dreams of Ajahn Sumedho coming and talking to him. I say, I don't get those dreams. What's the deal? So there's also temperament in terms of, so there's the quality of illness, but the quality of mind that we've somewhat cultivated and inherited. So I ask him, like, what's your best strategy in some of the pain that you experience? And he says background, foreground is very good. He's very good at that. But visualizing his teachers, visualizing great Indian saints, brings him a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, or chanting Sanskrit mantras, things like that. So he's got resources to turn to, which aren't just about the physical body. He has inner resources that he's developed over this lifetime. So we have a good health system, right? So we have that kind of resources. So what kind of inner resources could one develop? Well, when you're sitting in a meditation hall, when you feel discomfort, discomfort feels like this. So any amount of attentiveness to the experience of discomfort is going to help you for more major discomforts, isn't it? Because one is able to be with a negative physical experience in a way which is mindful. and that builds up. So anything unpleasant that one experiences, weather, confusion, anxiety, every time we are able to allow it to be as it is in the openness of awareness, we develop the parami, a kind of virtuous quality for dealing with illness, don't we? And I often ask, like, people who have chronic illnesses, different kinds of chronic illnesses, how do you deal with it? And they do have a stoicism, but they also, I think, they have a way of not kind of going into the pain, having a way of distancing and giving it space and not attaching to it. And I guess that just comes from having to survive with it, having to be with it. Like if you have ways of, say, in a Buddhist culture, people, like let's say the Metta Sutta there, that if you can turn your mind away from the hopelessness of pain, say, and you go, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in, you occupy the mind in a beautiful, in a wholesome way, which is uplifting. So in terms of inner resources around illness and old age, what resources do you have? Do you have gathas or visualizations that can bring you to some kind of brightness? Because just looking at pain sometimes is too intense, I think. So giving pain. Having said that, I don't get much pain. I get a headache every 2 weeks, and I got wonky knees. But so I'm not an expert on this. But as the body ages, I guess a lot of us are afraid of dementia and Alzheimer's, those kinds of things. So I took up weaving. It's my anti-Alzheimer's mechanism. I mean, I love it too, but I'm just kind of trying to keep my mind active because I'm interested in life. I'm interested in making. I'm interested in doing, and then I meditate a lot. So I've got it as good as you can get it. But if the whole thing goes wonky, I got monks to take care of me. It's actually why we built the monastery. What's the answer? Aversion to the way things are feels like this. Just all the training we get around the little niggling negativities of life, if we keep seeing that this is an opportunity to know the way things are, they build up the paramita of patience, of equanimity, of adaptability, these different kind of things. But Ajahn Chah, he had dementia. His mind, he had like mini strokes. And at one point, Luang Liam, I don't know what kind of, dementia is a broad category. But at one point, he was talking nonsense. And so what he was thinking he was saying, he wasn't saying. And Luang Liam said, now's the time to practice silence. And he'd stop talking. Interesting, huh? So what I have this third or fourth hand, second hand maybe. But I was like, okay, he could be aware of that. Mystery to me, really. And people ask that, well, so how does awareness function in dementia? Don't know. I hope I don't have to find out. But however it works. So I think what we're doing, like living a good life, obviously, living generously, not being selfish, sharing our resources, caring for others, all of those are help in the aging process because we put really beautiful things into consciousness. So our this lovely 2 Afghani families that we're now related to, brings us so much joy. Like I was telling Tariq, the matriarch of the family, she said if she lived close by, she'd come every week. Oh, this is great, isn't it? So anything we do like that, which uplifts the heart, gives the mind vitality and gives our consciousness good memories and happy memories. So I think realizing as we get older, we can become very vulnerable. We can become very kind of sensitive. So to really be careful of the inputs that we put in there, and not to put in the depressing parts of our world culture, not to flavor our minds with violence and all the negativity of life, and to kind of uplift the mind by listening to beautiful music or reading beautiful literature, so kind of bringing beauty into the mind and vibrancy and those kinds of things. And then somehow it's karma. I don't know how it works after that. But definitely, if you have a caregiver, if we ever get to that, don't be grumpy. Don't be grumpy. So that's not much, but I think the idea of awareness is that it never gets old. Like is I'm 77 and you're whatever. Is your consciousness older than mine? Can you say that awareness has an age? And I don't think so. Awareness, does it? Like, is my awareness different than your awareness? I don't know. I mean, there is individuality, but the more we are curious about that which is not born and does not die, that is a very important part of the aging process, and that, of course, doesn't exist in conventional culture. The only option seems to be death, and then heaven or hell, or something like that, or good karma or bad karma. But of course, the Buddha's realization was, no, there is this other option of the unconditioned, the uncreated. So there's a kind of, again, there's an urgency for enlightenment, not to kind of waste away one's time in trivial pursuits, and to invest a lot of time into understanding this, whatever analogies you like, the metaphor, foreground and background, the background, the background, the background. And yet keeping, I think, the foreground with some vitality. Otherwise, life, the mind can get very, very depressed and so on. So meditate a lot. Again, I almost every time I teach, I say, make that morning practice very, very important. Make it long, make it profound, make it important in your life, because that gives you the kind of strength of mind to understand the unconditioned and kind of go beyond the conditioned realm. But there's no escaping. It's not an escape from birth and death. It's a witnessing of birth and death. I'm often, not often, but once every other year, a friend is in terminal illness, and then they say, "Can you help me to die?" And the first question I ask them, well, do you think that consciousness is a matter of the brain? In other words, the consciousness is a epiphenomenon of matter. In other words, do you think consciousness is physical? Do you think consciousness, what happens to consciousness when you die? I kind of probe that kind of a question. And most people feel that consciousness is not physical. Now you could say that's because they're naive and they don't want to die. Yeah, you could say that. Or, might be true. So it's the hard question in philosophy. But I say, okay, then if you think that's true, that when the body dies, consciousness or whatever you call it, somehow, what shall we say, persists? Now, is like your ego going to persist? Your memories? No, 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 no. So what might persist? What's the kind of closest thing you could get? And then I try to get them to the conclusion that it's awareness. I cheat. I kind of, like a good friend, and try to get them to that. Yeah, awareness is the only thing that has, well, you could call it consciousness or being or presence, but that has the only link to something that might not be physicality. So then, of course, I say, okay, can you be aware of being afraid of dying? Can you be aware of being the kind of sense of loss of not being with your kids? Can you be aware of that as an object? Can you be aware of nausea as an object? Can you be aware of embarrassment and loss of function? Can you be aware of that as an object? So just keep hammering away, persuading to take the position of awareness knowing, awareness knowing, awareness knowing. And then what do you think would happen when the body dies? What do you think will happen? And the person says, I don't know. I said, send me a postcard. I don't know either. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me. What awareness, consciousness, we don't know. Is it physical? I don't think it is. Because my whole experience of physicality is known in consciousness. Right? The body doesn't know consciousness. What makes this so? It's a conscious universe, or it's a conscious experience. So for me, physicality is in consciousness as a way of talking, and that's not just trying to be clever with language. It's a kind of the way I approach the whole thing of death and what's most important. So for me, what's most important is witnessing, and then when death comes, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. So, like if you have, there was one lady in New Zealand. She had made a determination. She was in hospice, and she had made a decision not to take morphine. And okay, and then the pain was incredible. And the pain was so incredible, it was very hard for her to be mindful. And so her family persuaded her to, just take enough to ease the pain. She eased the pain, she was quite lucid, and we were eating popsicles together. She, let's have popsicles. So somehow the pain meds of palliative care worked very, very well, and she was quite lucid when she died. So I saw my mom. My mom was quite lucid when she died. It wasn't pretty, obviously. And so then I just stayed with my mom. I think you know this. I stayed with her for how long was it? It was about maybe 48 hours. I didn't allow the undertakers to take her body away. It was March. I opened the windows, made it all nice and cold, and then I just witnessed, and organized funerals and things like that until it was too much, and I was exhausted. So taking that in, and we don't have that in our culture. We're not allowed. We have palliative care. We have that. But in Thailand, it's like in Thailand, if a monk dies, we have a funeral pyre in the monastery, Wat Nanachat. Maybe then 100 monks come and hundreds of lay people, and the cremation is right there. We do the chanting. So it's kind of much more natural, much more in nature, but it's very, very powerful to do that. I'm getting morbid here. Morbidio inferiori. When the mind wanders with thoughts, it could be driven by past events or fantasies. Do you deal with both the same way? Yeah. Don't go there. Just refuse. Don't go there. Because we've probably gone there too much already. And I do think that the language of liberation is silence, and to honor silence as opposed to honoring thought, to favor silence as opposed to favoring analysis, to favor stillness as opposed to favoring movement, these kinds of inclinations. And then in that stillness, trusting in awareness and letting wisdom speak through that. To me, that seems very important. And the pull of fantasies or clever thoughts or memories, the strongest pull, isn't it? It just grabs you and you run with it. So kind of make intentions towards silence. So, and these are two related questions. In Buddhist teachings and writings, there's reference to investigation. How and where does this apply to awareness? Is curiosity a useful way to work with doubt? So the simplest way to think of the Buddhist teaching is that the Buddha says, I teach two things, suffering and the end of suffering. So he didn't teach about origin of species, or he didn't teach about molecular biology or things like that. That's another realm. So he taught suffering and the end of suffering, and then the end of suffering, of course, is not just psychological comfort, but as I say, it's liberation from the attachment to this kind of the khandhas. So the curiosity, the kind of curiosity or we call investigation Dhamma Vijaya, is when you suffer. And when you feel discomfort or lack or whatever, to try to make conscious, this is what I want, something I don't want something. That constant refrain of noticing any kind of discontent that you have, and you get better and better and better at that. In the beginning, the discontent might be like, being angry at your partner, or being really, really disappointed in your kids, or but obviously we work through that coarser stuff, and then the more refinement is that the mind still, it's not settled. It wants something. It doesn't want something. It doesn't know how to be still. And your curiosity then, or your investigation of Dhamma, is more and more refined. And then what you try out is more and more refined. But that comes quite naturally, I think. If you're witnessing, if you're trying to get something, then of course it's a more complicated thing, because you're no longer curious, you're with an agenda of what you want to get or what you think you should get rid of. So if you have a perception that you are a bad person and you should be a better person, then you usually lose the investigative quality and you fall into judgment, and then you try to become a better person and you're caught in personality view. If, however, you are a really bad person, you think, yeah, I'm a bad person, punch the person in the head, that's fine, you wouldn't be here. So that's not a problem. So usually the problem is self-disparagement and thinking that, well, I need to be, I've got an anger problem, I need to sort out my anger, or why am I so judgmental, I need to sort. That's not Dhamma. That's Sakayaditthi, self-view. So what we're trying to do is let go of the personality view and see our inner world more in its raw data. Let go of the kind of cultural attachments that we have of who we should be or how life should be, and all our idealism, and really let go of doubt and look at things just as they are. Once we have that, then we have Dharma. Like if you just listen, or let's say if I just squeeze my hand now and I experience that and I make no comment about it, that's Dharma. because there's no construct around it. It's just that. Then I can construct something around it. Oh, your hands look old man, or we love your hands, or whatever. But then that's a construct. That's a thought. That's a perception built upon it. So Dhamma is the way things are, and we can always come to Dhamma when we let go of past and future, and just listen, and that's Dharma. That because it's not culturally built, right? It's not a judgment. It's nothing about wanting or getting rid of. So awakening to Dhamma is knowing the way things are. That's what we mean by Buddha knowing Dharma, or refuge in Buddha and Dharma. And that's always there. Nature's always there. When you look across this beautiful river and just look, and the mind stops. That's Dharma. Or you're having one of these wonderful salads. Salads are good here. And you taste the sourness of a pickle, and you just stop. And that's Dharma. Or you feel pathetic, absolutely pathetic, after an hours of meditation where you were just all over the map, and you just witness that. And that's Dharma. You are not pathetic. You may think you're pathetic, but you are not pathetic. Pathetic is a Dharma. It's a condition. It's a sankhara. It arises because of cause and conditions. So constantly, what we're just returning to is the purity of the way things are. Now, that's hard to do because the way things are pleasant and unpleasant, and we've developed a lifetime of ways to avoid the unpleasant and to get the pleasant, in both as necessity but also as cultural habit, as personality. So to actually witness not wanting something as Dharma is hard to do, very hard to do. But if you do, then your refuge is now in awareness rather than in the object which is pulling your heartstrings. So if at the end of the day you feel like that was a really good day, and then after you say it, just stop. When was that? When is time? Like, that was a good day is a perception. And what is not in time? Like, awareness is not in time. Or tomorrow I'm going to really practice hard. And I'm going to put much more effort. I got on my iPhone again too much today. I shouldn't have done that. So then the feeling, I should not use my phone. Bad boy. Or something like that. And then you just stop and feel, oh, it's like this. So what was always there? What's timeless? It's just this, isn't it? This awareness. Now, if I believe in time, I'm going to do this in order to get that, then you don't get it. you don't get it, because it's not about time. It can't be about time if it's unconditioned, uncreated, unwritten. It can't be about time. So you begin to see this very kind of movement towards something and away from something as an object in the present moment. And like the Dharma is just the presence of how things are. It's just very, very simple. But the complexity is desire, what it does. So in any given moment, there is awakening, because nature's always here. Dharma's nature, isn't it? Nature, the way things are. So I look at that fan, couldn't get the word, and I just sit and abide in awareness. Silent. Can I find a person that's doing this? No, it just seems to be doing itself. There's silence, that's Dhamma. Yeah, it's really that simple. But sustain that for hours and hours and hours is hard. So the habits of thought, mostly, isn't it? The habits of thought begin to preoccupy. I like the word unfurnished. I don't know why I like that. So when I look at the fan and I just stop, there's unfurnished attention, shall we say. And then I look at that fan and I say, is one of the blades off? God, this place is falling apart. You know, they haven't done any repairs or maintenance to this place for a long time. I've suddenly furnished the mind with ideas and which are not wrong. And so we're constantly kind of furnishing. And it's like this IKEA store now, just chock-a-block with stuff. But in any moment, you can get rid of the furniture. You can stop. And also the furniture's gone. The whole sense of self is gone. Personality's gone. Like that sense of I think it was Rupert Spira that I was listening to. He said, "Yeah, you have." I was saying this yesterday. You have consciousness, for sure, and then you have objective experience, for sure. And is there a third element called me? And that's what we mean by inquiring into the deathless. There's no answer to that because there is mere silence. But that silence gives you a sense of intuition of what Dharma is. Is there a me here? Now, if you are intellectually seeking an answer, it'll drive you nuts, because there is no answer. There is silence, and that's what that kind of an inquiry does. And then you try to abide as that silence, and then you use language like wait. And then, if you keep doing that, there's a kind of intuition that the whole experience of sense, the sense world, is underpinned or enveloped by silence. And as you kind of relax into that, you also begin to kind of just get a sense, and it's an accepting, welcoming, opening, loving silence, which I was trying to kind of portray this afternoon. And so that's my sense of what awakening's about. Whereas when I first started in meditation, it was about getting jhanas, getting sotapatti, getting anagami, getting sakadagami, getting arahant, getting 1, 2, 3, 4, getting rid of my fear, getting rid of my anger, being a great monk, and of course I failed, and I felt miserable. And you find that in monasticism, where some monk will think, I'm the next Ajahn Mun. I'm the next, not quite like that, but I have to be, I have to strive, and I have to really, really work hard, and I shouldn't sleep too much, and I had too much sugar yesterday. And I push and I push and I push, and they create these incredibly impossible goals and ideals. And they fail and they disrobe. And then I can't do it. You can't do it because you set it up all wrong. And you can't persuade them. And they'll say, oh, you guys are all wimps. You're not really doing the real practice. And that's a kind of delusion of becoming. Now, I wasn't that deluded. But I certainly had that willfulness. And the books are talking about this. But my teacher said, no, let go. Let go, let be. It's like this. Luang Por Sumedho, since the get-go for myself in Thailand, was always about, like, now is the knowing, he would say, or be Buddha knowing Dharma. What do Buddhas know that others don't know? That which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease is not self. It was always always the same way. And so when you read literature, you can get very, I'd read about some great teacher and their attainments, and I said, oh, I'm so pathetic. It's kind of, get the violence out. And then I'd make determinations. Okay, this vasa, this is going to be the one. And then I had a seizure because I wasn't sleeping, and you've probably heard all those stories. And then one vasa, I came to Luang Samedo at Chitters. I think, Luang, I'm going to make a determination in front of you. He said, oh no. Here he comes again. I said, I determined never to make another determination. And he said, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And I did some really, really intense things, but I just didn't have the wisdom to understand that. I had to kind of live out that kamma. But then the Buddha, 6 years of ascetic practices, very, very intense. So the kind of conclusions I come to are through a lot of pain and through a lot of trial and error. And I guess the final issue really is about, like, what do you really trust in? Do you trust in analysis and judgment and becoming? Does that work for you? Or do you trust in awakening, waiting? And if you're watching dukkha, inquiring, observing, if something doesn't work and you're intelligent, you'll give that up. Don't we all, like all of us, have kind of tried things, maybe intense techniques or whatever, and we try and we try and try and try and try and try, and that's not for me. And then and someone says maybe 5 years later, you should really try this technique. We say, yeah. But we have confidence. We have confidence because, no, that didn't work. I know for myself. And that confidence is the confidence of craft, not the confidence of like intellectual opinions. You just know in your guts that this works, this does not work. And if you keep honing that or mining that or cultivating that personal conviction that this does work for me and this does not work for me, you're the only one that can know that, right? I don't know if what I'm talking about makes any sense even. Really, I don't. And only you can know, yeah, this does work, not because someone says, because I feel better. I have less suffering, and I'm a better being for it. So that kind of inquiry then is very intuitive, and it just goes on to more and more refinement. Okay, I think that's the questions. So I'll leave that for your reflection.
Dhamayam Dhammakataya Sadhukaram Dadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
Well, Paul Samana said to me once, Viradhammo, I don't need to criticize you. You just criticize yourself all the time. So he would just lift me up all the time. Very kind. Very kind.